As the race for the presidency heats up, only 2 candidates have been nominated so far. They're Mairead McGuinness, nominated by Fine Gael, and Catherine Connolly, who's been nominated so far by the Social Democrats, People Before Profit, and the 100% Redress and other independent supports. She's joining me in studio now. Catherine, I'm delighted to welcome you to Newstalk. Thank you for coming in to us today. Catherine, for anoraks like me, you're a very familiar face. We watch you in the Dáil all the time, and you're a brilliant orator. But maybe for our listeners who wouldn't be that clued into politics, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I suppose there was a time when I wasn't clued into politics, and many's the time I wish I could go back to that. But once you're there, you can't. I'm from Galway. I'm Galway born, bred and reared. Galway is a bilingual city on the edge of the Gaeltacht, the biggest Gaeltacht in the country. I come from a large family, 14, 7 boys and 7 girls. I had the privilege of working in different jobs. So I started out as a clinical psychologist, worked in that role for many years, and then started studying law at night time, more by accident, really. Met a lovely group of people and just continued, and then qualified as a barrister. In between, I did other jobs to finance myself. I became a councillor in 1999, first elected. I was elected as an alderman. At the time, I actually didn't know what it meant, and it meant the first elected. It didn't mean the person with the most votes, which was pointed out to me very quickly. So I got a very quick rude awakening.
Yes, politics will do that to you.
Yeah, that was the first elected. That was 1999. And I was elected to the Dáil in 2016. I missed out in 11 just by 17 votes.
Yeah. So when you were elected to the council in the first place, when did you kind of decide, politics is for me, this is the path I want to take now? What was there?
I never really did that in my life. It was something organic, I think. At the time, I was a member of the Labour Party, and they were actively searching for people to stand. And there wasn't a list of people to go into politics. Different people were asked, and eventually I said no, and then I said yes. And I ever since I've been there, I think what keeps me going really is the privilege of having a voice and the importance of using that voice for the common good. It's been a theme I've had since I was elected. I don't describe myself as a natural politician, whatever that is. People ask me, do I enjoy it? I don't.
You don't enjoy being a politician?
No, I don't.
What don't you enjoy about it?
Well, I'll put it this way. If you ask me what I like or love, I would say music, reading, athletics. Yeah, I have no hesitation.
None of that in Dáil Éireann.
No, I have no hesitation. When it comes to politics, it's a privilege. I'm paid well, and I remind myself of that every single day of my life. That it's a privilege, and to use my voice. That's what I was elected for, and that's what I do.
But it doesn't give you joy. You don't like it.
Well, it's just some people love politics, and they're able to say,
I love campaigning, because
I enjoy meeting people.
Campaigning is very different to meeting people. If you don't like campaigning, this might not be the next couple of months for you.
I assort campaigning with meeting people.
Right, okay.
And I have no difficulty with that, and I find people very straight with me. I tend to be very straight. So certainly that part is very enjoyable.
And that's what your campaign is going to be about?
Oh, absolutely.
Meeting people.
Well, my campaign is a lot more than that. I think it's the role of presidency is extremely important. In fact, on occasions, listening to the various commentary from different commentators about the presidency, actually, I wasn't impressed in the sense of it has become more a sport and a denigration of the role, and many names being talked about and then not talked about. I think the role of presidency is extremely important.
Yep,
and it's part of a trinity, the Dáil, the Seanad and the role of the president. And in fact, actually, it was the final sort of push over the line when I made my decision.
Yeah,
this is a very important role.
You did say that when you announced you were going for it. You said that you had done so and you'd made the final decision, and it was a kind of challenge for you to make that decision, but you did that because of people contacting you and messaging you. So what was it in those messages that made you kind of make the decision and go for it? Why do you want to be president?
I suppose every politician will say the response is good, but the response is actually overwhelming. And it's come from the ground up, and it has been organic, and it's something that I actually ignored for quite some time. And then
But is that a good enough reason? Because people want you to be. So why do you want to be president?
I just wanted to answer your question in relation to that. So I started to look at those messages, and those messages were saying, we recognise that you're an honest voice, that you have integrity, that we can trust you. We don't have to agree with you, but we trust you. We agree with you on a lot of issues. We don't agree with you on other issues. But for the role of presidency, we trust you. We have confidence. You have had the privilege of being in different roles, and all of that they see as an advantage.
And it is a huge advantage, and I've no doubt that people do trust you. But just to come back to that, like what makes you want to be president? What do you feel you could do with that role?
Yeah, I build on I've taken from my own experience. I think we're at a point in our history, at a crossroads. I really think we need to reflect on where we're going as a country in terms of using our neutrality, being a voice for peace, reflecting what's best about the country, reflecting the spirit of the country. And I think that's been very evident. If I just use Palestine for the moment, and at all the protests, people are crying out. They're crying out for peace. They're crying out for justice. And that isn't just confined to Palestine. They're actively asking for their voices to be represented, which predominantly is a different vision for the country in terms of peace, not an acceptance of ongoing wars, not an acceptance of the normalisation of homelessness and the normalisation of war. So various themes have come up all of the time.
So as the president, then you want to give a voice to people and allow them to do that. Do you not think Michael D. Higgins has done that?
Absolutely. And
so you're just going to continue what he's done?
Two things. I think it's very important, I've said it from day one, that my role is to empower, encourage, enable people of this country to use their voices. I think it's really important in a country where consensus is valued that we look at the opposites to consensus and reward questioning, reward curiosity. And I come to Michael D. I just make the point when we go to look at the banking inquiry and Nyberg did his report, what jumped out at me was the consensus mentality was one of the major problems behind the banking inquiry. Just 2-3 weeks ago, I sit on the Public Accounts Committee. It's my second time on it. And we have a report by HIQA in relation to the various procedures that shouldn't have taken place. The thing that jumped out again was no questioning, no atmosphere created to allow questions, a consensus mentality. So many, many years after the Nyberg and the banking, we have the same problem of a consensus mentality and a rewarding of that as opposed to a rewarding of a questioning, a constructive questioning.
And these are all very live political issues. And of course, as president, your role is to protect the Constitution. That's a fundamental role. You have to guard the Constitution. So in the campaign and like these highly political issues of the day, do you see that being the things that you will talk about during the campaign? Will that be your platform?
I'm very familiar with the Constitution from my role in law. And I've looked at the various articles. There are only a small number that relate to the role of the presidency. And obviously it's a restricted role. Obviously it's a very important symbolic role. But it also has important functions. And one of the ones that struck me is Article 12.8, I think. And it talks about whoever is elected will take a solemn oath to uphold the Constitution and the law, but also to serve the welfare of the people. And I think that's a crucial part of the Constitution, to serve the welfare of the people. And I think there's scope there to serve the welfare of the people in different ways.
But can I just ask you, you're a member of Dáil Éireann now and with a voice of your own, and you've been elected by the people of Galway. Can you not do that from that privileged position?
Yes, I've done that. And actually some people perhaps are disappointed or maybe that I'm leaving that role. And I understand that. And I engage with them. I have engaged and I listen to them. But this is an opportunity, I think, to bring it onto another level and the importance of reflecting what people of this country want, the values. You asked me about Michael D earlier on and I didn't get to respond. Michael D was very courageous throughout his term in speaking out when it was necessary. And he was reflecting what people felt on the ground. He's one of the most, if not the most popular presidents. So I have to recognise his courage, and indeed I've done so publicly.
Yeah.
And indeed his wife similarly was courageous when it was necessary.
It's interesting just to mention him in a kind of political context, and going back to, you know, how you became a TD, because you have a complex relationship with the Labour Party, a very bitter breakup. At the time you said that the party had lost its soul. So do you think that the party has found its soul now, that maybe you're looking for its support to...
I wouldn't ever use the word bitter in relation to myself. I had no bitter feelings. We parted.
It looked from the outside like a bitter row.
Perhaps I never had a row, and not bitter, and I'd never use the word bitter in relation to myself, ever. We parted ways for lots of reasons. I leave it up to the Labour Party to go through their own process, as the Green Party are doing and as Sinn Féin are doing.
And can I just ask you about that? Have you engaged with the Labour Party now? You've met them?
I have, and I've met the Green Party, and I've met other parties.
And what about Sinn Féin? Have you met them?
I've spoken to Mary Lou some time back, and I you know, every party has to make their decision based on their own criteria and what they want, and strategically and so on. I as an independent candidate, I'm proud to stand. It took me quite some time to make that decision, but I'm proud to stand, and I'm proud of the overwhelming support. When we set up our website after the announcement, we had over 2,000 people within 24 hours sign up. It's gone up to over 3,000 now, and it'll be just 2 weeks tomorrow.
And are they volunteering to help you or supporting?
Absolutely volunteering to help.
Sorry, we jumped way into the very deep stuff, and I didn't ask you any of the practical stuff about the nomination process. Sorry, that's what I really did want to talk to you about was, you know, who's supporting you and how's that going? Because a campaign for an independent like yourself running without a party structure, I don't know if you heard the conversation we had with Joan Freeman yesterday, it's an onerous task to take on. You need a big amount of help and funds.
Absolutely. And actually, if I had dwelled on that, I probably wouldn't have. I certainly would have. It would have been a more difficult decision. The difficult decision for me was psychologically to make it, and then it's absolutely on a different level entirely now, in terms of money, in terms of the country. I have a very good team, and we are the website. We're monitoring it on a daily basis, and people are volunteering to help. On Thursday, for example, we have a live session online in relation to the volunteers. I look on this more as a movement, and I would like to think of myself as a unifying candidate, actually.
And, you know, that is an interesting point of unity, because one of the things, I suppose, in the Dáil that we've seen is a unity of the left, you know, and obviously you're hoping, and the Labour Party may still support you, although we hear that there might be kind of internal difficulties there about differing approaches. So who's to know? Maybe they will. But let's just talk about support perhaps from Sinn Féin. Because one of the things that you were asked about in the context of Sinn Féin and in the context of the office of the presidency was your position in relation to a border poll or United Ireland. And you said that you saw that happening very soon. And some people thought that was maybe a little show of the ankle to Sinn Féin. So what's your position on that? Is this something that you've advocated for in the past?
Well, it's interesting. Yes, absolutely. So in my role as chair of the Irish Committee, I went up to Northern Ireland. I've been up there on a number of occasions, and just quietly on the ground. I actually had a brother home from Canada who attended an Irish course while I toured Belfast and went to all of the centres. It wasn't something I publicised. I met Linda Irvine. We had spoke in Irish. I went to all the centres. I went to the radio station in Irish. I went to Derry, to Cairn Tucker, which is a very impressive Gaeltacht that started with no Irish speakers, now have over 200, and actually bought 200 acres in trust for the people of the area. It's subject of an interview of itself. And I felt any time I've gone up to Northern Ireland that it's like as if we've cut off our right arm. It's just unnatural. And of course,
that's something you've advocated for, like to have that discussion.
Perhaps not as loudly as I should have, but there were so many things to talk about.
And do you see that being part of your proposition?
I would love to see united in Ireland. Quite clearly it has to be done by consent, and quite clearly we have to make whatever changes are necessary to make that happen. But we're a tiny country. We shouldn't be divided.
And you spoke to Mary Lou, you said. How did that go?
Well, it's some time ago. And
your decision?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so you haven't spoken to her since then about this?
No, I left it up to them because they were. She made it clear they would have their own internal.
So you're going to let them have their process?
Absolutely, I'm not going to influence any party. Again, I would say I'm standing. It's a golden opportunity to stand together. I really would emphasise that I want to be a unifying candidate. There are core issues that we need to look at in the country. The normalisation of homelessness is just unacceptable. The normalisation of wars, I've said that already. And there are a number of core issues that I think most people would agree with.
You've mentioned the normalisation of things like wars a number of times now, and you'd obviously consider yourself a pacifist, right? So you're the other, and I have absolutely no doubt you know exactly what this role entails, so I am not being, facetious when I say this to you. I'm just merely saying these things because the listeners might not know. But one of the roles in the presidency is that you are the supreme commander of the defence forces, and we are now living in an era where the government is going to increase defence spending significantly and changing the defence forces of Ireland. How would you, as a pacifist, be able to support our troops in any role that they may have to take on instruction of the government? Would you feel comfortable with that?
I think the role of president is protected under the Constitution, and there are rules and regulations. Obviously, a president has to comply with the Constitution and with law. I have no difficulty with that. I was elected as Lescan Corla for over 4.5 years. It wasn't something I expected. Actually, it was something I went into to give competition. It seemed to me just wrong to let the government have a role like that on
and
a
I
plate.
think, in fairness, that's why a lot of people trust you and see your fairness, because that role did allow you to do that.
It did, and I'm known as somebody with strong opinions on various topics.
No.
but I think I showed that I'm quite capable of putting aside those opinions. And in fact, my respect for democracy deepened listening to the range of opinions across. Very often I didn't agree with the opinion, but that didn't stop me carrying out my role professionally.
Well, another way that you might be called upon to do just that is there's a lot of discussion now about the triple lock. And if we were in a situation where the Dáil voted for the triple lock to be changed, you as president then have a role. Do you see yourself referring something like that to the Supreme Court, or what would you do in that scenario?
Well, all one can do is outline what the scenarios are to refer it to the Supreme Court or not. And obviously there's a Council of State and you would take advice.
But that's all it is. It's your decision at the
absolutely.
end of the day.
But you do it based on that's speculative. And I know it could be very real. I accept that. But as president, you'll sit down and you'll see when it's referred and what's the best thing to do. If you refer it to the Supreme Court, then it can't be challenged after that. So one would have to carefully reflect on that with the help of the very able people who'd be on the Council of State.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, you said you have very strong opinions, and that's probably one of the things that people like about you most, and you're able to articulate them in a very forceful way, but respectful way. We are living in such a complex geopolitical world at the moment, government trying to navigate very difficult waters, but you as president obviously would have to be part of any state mission, state visit. So if Donald Trump were to visit Ireland, I'm just thinking this going in, how would someone like you be able to deal with that?
But, you do a role and you do it to the best of your ability. And that's what I would do. And I think I've shown that all my life in different roles. I worked as a clinical psychologist. I listened. I worked as a barrister.
You need to be a clinical psychologist if you're going to welcome him up to the Oris.
But as a barrister, you worked on different sides.
I'm not questioning any of this.
No, I'm only explaining.
But I'm only asking because people are asking these questions.
Absolutely.
They don't know. So we're just trying to see how you would approach those things. Yeah. So when I was talking to Joan Freeman yesterday, she said that every day of the campaign, every single day of the campaign, she woke up terrified and she went to sleep terrified. And she wasn't joking. Are there things about the campaign as you head into it now that you are worried about or that would terrify you?
I think the hardest decision was making the decision. And I don't wish to overemphasize, but the support was organic over a year to 2 years. So by the time, it took me a few months to make the decision. Once I made it, it freed me completely. And the support on the ground, if we take Galway, I was at I won't say during the week, I was at two Ceolcarum, Tá Gaeilge Teach the Rash. And just the people are very supportive. They're very honest with me. They say, like you said, I think originally, I mightn't agree with everything you're saying, but they respect what I'm saying. They know where they stand with me. And I think a role of a president is to reflect all of the people in the best way that I can, and to unite, because we have more in common. We have a fantastic country. We have, it's beautiful. We have the Irish language, agus tá sé thar bheith tábhachtach dom, agus is cathair go teangach mar a dúirt me car na Gaillimhe, agus is cathaoirleach me den cos de Gaeilge. So there's so many good things. A bilingual country, Galway City is a bilingual city, with all the advantages that brings. And equally, we're a seafaring nation, and I come from a family where my dad lived on the sea and traditional boats.
I can see that you've been thinking long and hard about what your manifesto will be. I gotta go after this, but I don't want to go before I ask you these two quick questions. Yeah. You have been asked in the past about decisions you've made in the past, supporting Gemma O'Doherty, going to Syria. Is there anything that you regret now as you go into the campaign that you say, actually, I want to get this off my chest, I wish I hadn't done that? Are you comfortable with all the choices you've made in that?
I'm comfortable that I made the decisions I made at the time, and I tried to deal with that the day that I met all the media outside the Dáil, and I was as blunt and as straight as I could be. I went to Syria with a group of like-minded people on a fact-finding mission. I've said this, and we went to see the refugee camp.
Would you consider Claire Daly and Mick Wallace to be like-minded people to yourself?
Absolutely, and Maureen O'Sullivan was there, and a group of activists. And indeed, Maureen O'Sullivan has discussed this with me, and it's interesting that her name is left out repeatedly to suit a particular narrative, not yours, on occasion. But we, 4 TDs with a group of community activists. We met people on the ground. We met no member of government. We met with the Chamber of Commerce. We went to a convent. We met with UNRWA.
Catherine, listen, I could sit here and talk to you for another hour, and we really do appreciate you coming into us today, and we wish you well in your campaign. That's Catherine Connolly, Independent TD for Galway West and presidential candidate.